everybody. Welcome to another installment of Rising Voices, a local poetry show that features poetry and rising talent and all things wonderful related to poetry in Marin County. We've had a couple of shows before. One featured our own homegrown but now nationally famous poet Javier Zamora. Another featured the wonderful students of Forward's Literacy Lab, which is located right here in San Rafael. And another one featured Marin Poetry Center, an organization that's been around for a long time and recently relocated to Mill Valley Library. Today's show is a really exciting one. We're featuring the Poets Out Loud program, and our two guests, and I'll be introducing you to them soon, are Lily Nicole Bogas, who is a champion of the Poetry Out Loud program, and her coach, Clair Blotter. The Poetry Out Loud program is a national arts education program funded by the NEA that encourages the study of great poetry at the high school level by offering a dynamic recitation competition to high schools across the country. Now, if you don't know about this, you should watch local listings to see when these competitions happen in our county. They're super fun. They often are looking for judges, and you have the chance to see local high school kids reciting great poems and really using synergy to create something quite wonderful. I'm going to start by introducing Clair Blotter, who is Lily's coach. I'm going to read her bio, and Claire's going to perform a poem to kind of show us how this all works, and then she'll answer some questions about the program. So Clair Blotter, writer and director, performs poetry with movement and body percussion and teaches writing and performance workshops to Marin children, teenagers, and adults. She represented San Francisco in national poetry slams in Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco. She's received 2 Marin Arts Council grants, individual artist grants, the American Academy of Poets San Francisco State University Award, and a first place award in the Bay Guardian Poetry Contest. Clair has taught writing and performance at San Francisco State University, John F. Kennedy University, Dominican College, and College of Marin. She's published 3 poetry chapbooks and has been published widely in journals and anthologies. Her award-winning video, Wake Up Call, Saving the Songbirds, screened at the Mill Valley Film Festival. We all know about that. That's happening now. And 10 other nationwide film festivals, and it's distributed by the Video Project. 2 of her poetry videos are included in the Chicago Art Archives. So welcome, Clair, and you're going to perform a poem for us today, right?
Great. Yeah, this is a poem written by E.E. Cummings in the spirit of Poetry Out Loud. It's called Maggie and Millie and Molly and May. Maggie and Millie and Molly and May went down to the sea to play one day. And Maggie discovered a shell that sang so sweetly she couldn't remember her troubles. And Millie befriended a stranded star whose rays 5 languid fingers were. And Molly was chased by a horrible thing that raced sideways while blowing bubbles. And May came home with a smooth round stone as small as a world and as large as alone. For whatever we lose, like a you or a me, it's always ourselves that we find in the sea.
Wonderful. I love that line, small as a world and large as alone. Wonderful. So Clair, you're going to tell us a little bit about the Poetry Out Loud program. I gave a brief introduction, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about how it works, how the levels work, and specifically your experience with it with Lily.
Great. Well, Poetry Out Loud is a national poetry recitation competition. And it's sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, for California Arts Council and also by state arts agencies. And in California, it's the California Arts Council. And in Marin, we have a wonderful nonprofit called the Marin Cultural Association. And they have been terrific. And this year, our county finals are going to be held at the Civic Center Theater, the large theater, and it's going to be on February 9th at 2 o'clock, and the public's invited, and they've been really supportive. How Poetry Out Loud works is that students choose from over 900 poems on the Poetry Out Loud website, and then they perform their poems, and they're judged by a rubric which is consistent all over the United States, so that there's a really fair as possible competition. And there are it's kind of a pyramid structure. At the bottom, we start out with the classroom competition, and then there's the school competition. Students in their classroom memorize poems, and then there's the school competition. And the winner of that goes to our Marin County Finals. And the winner at the county finals wins $200 and $500 of poetry, literary books for their library, and a round-trip, all-expensive paid trip to Washington, D.C. The top winner, with a chaperone, and the top winner wins $20,000, and there are $50,000 worth of prizes. So we were very lucky this year because Lily won the state finals over 52 other students and was able to go to Washington, D.C. So it was really exciting to have her be able to go to Washington.
So just so I'm clear, I want to describe the kind of different funnels she had to get through to get to that. So she had to win in the classroom, win in the high school at the high school level, then perform in the county competition, and then in the state competition. Is that right?
Right. And
wow. That's a lot of performances.
Yeah. And I had heard at TAM she was really outstanding. And then when she won TAM, I got to coach her. And then the county finals, she did a beautiful job. And then moving on to the Washington, which was really exciting.
So before the show, we were talking a little bit. The Poetry Out Loud website, which you can find online, has pages and pages of tips. And one thing that I found intriguing that we discussed, and I'd like you to address a little bit, is the idea that the performer is supposed to be the vessel for the poem. They're supposed to internalize the poem. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
The Poetry Out Loud, the emphasis is not on the theatrical, dramatic performance of a poem, nor is it the monotone, usual voice. Sometimes high school students, when they first start reading, will read in, but it's this place where you're focused on the poem and understanding the poem and bringing authentic vocal intonation to it. So you really are a vessel for the poem. Your job is to get it across through your voice, and this is so important because this trains students to be able to use their voice in their life to get what they want, and that's what I emphasize when I teach in different classes, is that this is a skill that helps you to get people to listen to you and helps you later to get what you want. So it's not just a poetry recitation contest, it's really something that's valuable to all high school students and all people. Students will get into it, and it's really exciting to see. You don't have to be a drama student. You just need to pick a poem that comes from your heart and really work on what does this mean, and then be able to put it out to other people. It's really a gift to your audience.
And do you have any tips for how to accomplish that embodiment of the poem? I mean, as a poet myself, before I read, I always take a minute before, or a few seconds, to remember writing the poem. But you can't really do that if you're performing someone else's poem. So what are some ideas or tips for people when reading in general, and particularly when reading poems by others, that will help them get into that mind space of internalizing the poem?
I think reading the poem over and over and understanding it. When I teach high school students and at College of Marin, I even have the students map the tones. Every section has a different tone. Sometimes every line has a different tone. Every word has a different tone. When I did poetry slamming, it was almost as if every word had a tone. So to know the tone and to totally understand the levels of meaning and what it means to you personally. And then finally, the big thing is going slow enough so that you can feel the language and the feeling of each word, and to stay present with the words. And it's really hard it's hard to have that level of concentration and focus and forget about the audience. I know when Lily was at the state finals, Barbara Carita Ditz and I, her English teacher, went up, and we were all these people competing, and we just kept saying, this is about you and doing the best you can on your poem and focusing, and that's what she did. And it was so wonderful when she ended up winning, because we were just, come and give your gift.
So there are 4 things at least I heard you say. One is to read the poem over and over and over and over, just so that it's part of the fabric of your brain. And the second is to really make a heart connection with the poem by making sure you really understand it first. And the third is to make sure you speak slowly enough that you can inhabit each word. And the last is to stay present. That one is really challenging for me. A lot of times, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but a lot of times when I read, I literally feel like I'm on the ceiling looking down at the top of my own head. But anyway, those are good tips.
Well, and the other piece is about the tone.
Oh, and
the
tone.
Feeling quality, the feeling shifts. And if you aren't aware of that, and I think that's the other thing that helps you stay present, is the feeling of every section, because a poem moves. And the movement is what makes it interesting and exciting to hear.
Well, that's really helpful. Thank you. We're going to move next into the heart of the program, which is Lily is going to perform some of her work for us today. So I'll introduce her to you now. Lily Nicole Bogas is a 17-year-old Marin County High School senior, she's applying to colleges now, who enjoys finding her voice through the gift of storytelling. As a musician and theater artist, she's appeared in numerous productions in the Throckmorton Theater, the Marin Theater Company, and will appear this summer in the legendary Mountain Play. That's in that wonderful mountain amphitheater on top of Mount Tam. The National Poetry Out Loud competition found Lily last year while a junior at Tamalpais High School. At the encouragement of her English teacher, Barbara Carita Ditz, and with the artful coaching of Marin County poet Clair Blotter, Lily entered and won first her school, then county competitions, going on to garner the title of California Poetry Out Loud State Champion and the honor of being able to compete at the national level in Washington, D.C. In addition to her accomplishments in poetry recitation, Lily's warm mezzo voice has earned her a position as a top 10 finalist both in the National Classical Singers Vocal Competition and the coveted Michael Feinstein American Songbook Academy. Last year, Lily made her opera debut as Dido. That must have been a challenging role in Sonoma State University's production of Dido and Aeneas. Now a senior at Marin School of the Arts, Lily is appearing at the Federico Fellini-inspired musical Nine, and returns to Sonoma State's Green Music Center for a private solo performance in an evening of George Gershwin. So Lily, thank you so much for being here, and if you could perform some poems and a song with a little introduction to each, that would be great.
Yes.
Just the names or whatever.
Of course.
Thank you so much.
I'll be starting out is called Megan Married Herself by Caroline Bird, and this is the first one that I brought with me to Washington, D.C. She arrived at the country mansion in a silver limousine. She'd sent out invitations and everything, her name written twice, with and in the middle, the calligraphy of coupling. She strode down the aisle to At Last by Etta James, faced the celebrant like a keen soldier reporting for duty, her voice shaky, yet sure. I do. I do. You may now kiss the mirror. Applause. Confetti. Every single one of the 140 guests deemed the service unimprovable, especially the vows, so from the heart. Her wedding gown was ivory, pointedly off-white. After all, we've shared a bed for 32 years, she quipped in her first speech. I'm hardly virginal, if you know what I mean. No one knew exactly what she meant. Not a soul questioned their devotion. You only had to look at them, hand cupped in hand, smiling out of the same eyes. You could sense their secret language, bone deep, blended blood. Toasts were frequent, tearful. One guest eyed his wife, hovering harmlessly at the bar, and imagined what his life might have been if he'd responded years ago to that offer in his head. I'm the only one who will ever truly understand you. Marry me, Derek. I love you. Marry me. At the time, he hadn't taken his proposal seriously. He recharged his champagne flute, watched the newlywed cut her 5-tiered cake, both hands on the knife. Is it too late for us to try? Derek whispered. To no one. As the bride glided herself onto the dance floor, taking turns, first to lead, then follow.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And I'll do a second one. This is Shall Earth No More Inspire Thee by Emily Bronte. Shall earth no more inspire thee, thou lonely dreamer now? Since passion may not fire thee, shall nature cease to bow? Thy mind is ever moving in regions dark to thee. Recall its useless roving. Come back and dwell with me. I know my mountain breezes enchant and soothe thee still. I know my sunshine pleases, despite thy wayward will. When day with evening blending sinks from the summer sky, I've seen thy spirit bending in fond idolatry. I've watched thee every hour. I know my mighty sway. I know my magic power to drive thy griefs away. Few hearts to mortals given on earth so wildly pine, yet none would ask a heaven more like this earth than thine. Then let my winds caress thee, thy comrade let me be, since naught beside can bless thee. Return and dwell with me. And Thank you. And here's a song called Elegy, written by Carmel Dean with words by Edna St. Vincent Millay. And it is part of a musical/song cycle that was created for Broadway about Edna St. Vincent Millay's life. Let them bury your big eyes in the secret earth securely. Your thin fingers and your fair, soft, indefinite colored hair. All of these in some way surely from the secret earth shall rise. Not for these I sit and stare, broken and bereft completely. Your young flesh that sat so neatly on your little bones will sweetly blossom in the air, in the air. But your voice, never the rushing of a river underground, not the rising of the wind in the trees before the rain, not the woodcock's watery call, not the note the wide-throat utters, not the feet of children pushing yellow leaves along the gutters in the blue and bitter fall, shall content my musing mind for the beauty of that sound, the beauty of that sound that in no new way at all ever will be heard again. Sweetly through the sappy stalk of the vigorous weed, holding all it held before, cherished by the faithful song, on and on eternally shall your altered fluid run, bud and bloom and go to seed. But your singing days are done, but the music of your talk, never shall the chemistry of the secret earth restore. All your lovely thoughts are spoken. Once the ivory box is broken, beats the golden bird no more.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's a lot of talent in one package.
Oh, thank you. So beautiful.
That was wonderful. Gosh, I loved it. I loved it all. I loved every single bit of it. I have a number of questions, some of which just occurred to me. Can you tell us again the names of the two poems that you read?
Yes, so there was Megan Married Herself by
Right.
Caroline Bird. And the second one is Shall Earth No More Inspire Thee by Emily Bronte.
So those were really interesting selections. One is a contemporary poem and one is an older poem from the canon. Did you find the somewhat archaic diction in the Bronte poem challenging? I mean, did that make it harder to take that step we talked about before of meshing with the poem and finding a heart connection? Because it's not quite in our language, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I did is I translated it first into words that I would more use. And that kind of helped me figure out what they meant, especially for me. It definitely took me the most time to memorize. And I also study Shakespeare. And so you know how you would use scansion for Shakespeare. I really worked on the tones.
Yeah.
And Claire and I really worked on that a lot with that piece, especially.
And that one rhymed and the first one didn't. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did that make it easier to memorize, having that kind of sonic mnemonic of
I
the
think it
rhyme
did.
pattern? Yeah. And that first poem, it had some great language. It didn't rhyme, but I really was thinking about what you were saying, Claire, about tone. When you said the lines bone deep and blood blended, I really felt that thing that you were talking about with the tone.
She's there with the tone, totally.
Yeah, a lot of interesting mirroring in that poem. You know, she marries herself, she says I do to the mirror, you know, wonderful. Those are wonderful selections.
Thank you.
When you went to that website with the 900 poems, was it easy to find the poems? Did you have to wade through hundreds of them? Were you frustrated that maybe a poem you wanted wasn't there? Any or all of that?
Yeah, I spent a lot of class time reading through all the poems because there were so many on there, and I kind of went through alphabetical order, and I must have read all of them. I mean, I really searched because, like Claire was saying, it is most important to resonate with your piece,
Right,
and I think that is really what is going to show up on the stage the most.
right. It
So,
definitely did
yes.
today.
Thank you.
And so did you just read through, and then if you got like a little light bulb go on, you would make a note of that poem and then narrow them down further from there?
Yes, with
Yeah.
Megan, I was actually familiar with Caroline Bird, her work before, and so I was already drawn to that piece, but I also just found it so funny,
Yeah.
and I was thinking probably not many people were going to do that one because it's kind of a tricky one, and it's a longer poem. But it's funny because when we got to county, there was another girl who was actually my friend Saoirse who did the same poem.
Oh no, it's like
Yeah.
wearing the same dress at a party.
Yeah, and then I got to state.
Who wore it best?
Yes, and then I got to state and someone else did it.
Someone else did it too.
And at nationals, so.
I mean, that's a risk, right? If you're all drawing from the same pool. Is there any ability for people to suggest a poem that isn't in the pool, or has that never come up?
They change up the poems every year.
Ah.
And so, but by the time you got to your third poem, you had to really look. And there's a rule about at the Nationals, you have to do one pre-20th century poem,
Right.
and you have to do one that's 25 words, 25 lines or less. And so two of them, there's some structure around what you can choose. So you have to keep that in mind, and then you also have to feel the connection with the poem. So I know that you really searched that website, and I think that's important. Your poem is very important.
Yes,
Do you have a third poem prepared?
I do.
Oh, at the end, maybe we'll do that. I don't know if it'll make the final cut in terms of our
Yes.
time, but it'd be fun to have another one, I think. At the end, we'll do
Sure.
another one, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Do you write poetry yourself?
I do. I write a lot of music,
Oh.
and so it's a lot of lyrics, but music, poetry, it's all the same.
What, do you think there's a difference between sung lyrics and poetry? I guess sometimes there
really.
can be. If
There-
you're Leonard Cohen, the answer is no.
Yeah. I think there can be in the way that you structure it, possibly. Also, the way you're formatting it on the page, obviously, is not going to show up when you are singing it.
Right. Do you ever perform your own poetry at open mics or anything?
But I never have.
Ah. I
Yeah.
wonder if that would be different. What do you think?
I'm kind of nervous to be honest, but it's something I definitely want to try in the future to get outside of my comfort zone.
I guess if you're performing someone else's poem, you're almost putting on a mask. And you don't have to take responsibility for the meaning. You're endorsing it by performing it, but it's not, there's probably more at stake when you're doing your own stuff.
And that's what poetry slamming is too. You
Yeah.
write your own poem, which is different from poetry out loud because you're just working on technique there, vocal technique. But I think you'd be really good at it.
Have you tried slamming?
I haven't.
I haven't either. It seems really challenging. Although I just think it's wonderful, and I've seen videos of, there's actually a video somewhere online of Ian McClellan slamming a Shakespeare sonnet. And those are really great to slam because they have the right meter. So what did you enjoy the most, and what did you find the most challenging about the Poetry Out Loud competition?
The thing I enjoyed the most was definitely working with Claire. It was just so fun. She would pull me out of class and I'd be like, yes, I'm going to see my coach Claire. It was so fun. And also meeting the people. There were a lot of just excellent people that I got to meet that I know I never would have connected with, and we still talk.
Wow.
So it's, a friend in every state is very fun to have. The most challenging thing was keeping the nerves down, especially going to Washington, D.C., because, everyone is kind of serious over there, especially right now.
Yeah.
And so it was a very different atmosphere than being here close to home.
Right.
Yeah.
Was it a huge audience in Washington? Was it in a big auditorium? And
Yes, the auditorium was large, and all the parents were showing up mostly, and some locals, I think.
Right.
But yeah.
And I mean, you've obviously been classically trained in music, but you still feel nervous when you're performing. Is that right or not?
I think I feel a little less nervous when I'm singing than when I'm just reciting,
Right.
because music has been really prominent in my life, and this poetry thing was something that I just picked up last year. I transferred into poetry class because it was a requirement for my school. Yeah, I thought I told you this, and I had I didn't even know what Poetry Out Loud really was.
What a great marriage of disciplines, though.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, since we mentioned the music again, I wanted to thank Lily's mother, Desiree
Yes.
Bogas, for the musical accompaniment and also the makeup tips before the show. So what's coming up next for you with your poetry and your music? And you're a senior in high school, so you're probably applying to schools. Tell us a little bit about what's coming up next.
Yeah, so something with poetry is, for my senior project, I want to, because I go to an art school now, Marin School of the Arts, I want to showcase all the students, and I want to do a benefit concert with all disciplines, people reciting, people playing music, people dancing while someone is singing maybe, and having all the money go to a project for climate change.
Oh,
and,
wonderful.
Yeah, global advocacy. So maybe I'll be reciting some of my own work there.
Wonderful.
We will see, yeah. I'll be understudying Carmen in the opera of Carmen at Festival Opera in Walnut Creek.
Fantastic.
This coming summer. I'm very excited for that. And we're applying to college.
And what role are you playing in the mountain play? And what is the mountain play?
It's Hello Dolly, and I'm so excited to be in the ensemble. I have not done the mountain play before, and so I'm really excited to be part of that.
Yeah. Do they have all the rehearsals up there too, or do they rehearse somewhere else?
I think about 2 weeks before the performances happen, we go up to the mountain and we start.
Because you have to hike in.
Yes.
It's a whole ordeal.
It's a hike, yeah.
Yeah. Make sure you wear a sun hat. It's really hot
I will.
up there. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's exciting. I'm going to try to go this year since I
Yes.
know someone in
I'll
it.
get you a ticket.
And then the last question is, what would you say to other students to get them interested in doing this? Like, what have you gotten out of it besides the obvious accolades and a line on your CV and all that? What else have you gotten out of being a part of this Poetry Out Loud?
It is just such a beautiful art form. And I think, especially I do a lot of theater and opera, and you have to be someone else. But in this practice, you just can literally be the poem, and it can kind of be anything you want, and it isn't about you. It is about the words that you're using in the language, and I think that's really beautiful because it somewhat the pressure off of yourself, and you're just there to give a gift.
Well, there you have it. You be the poem.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Beautiful, beautiful job. Well, thank you very much. I would love to have you perform one more poem, and if there's time, we'll include it. So we'll do that, and then we'll just let the show end at the end of the poem. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Wonderful show.
Great. It's called Diameter by Michelle Y. Burke. You love your friend, so you fly across the country to see her. Your friend is grieving. When you look at her, you see something's missing. You look again. She seems all there. Reading glasses, sarcasm, leather pumps. What did you expect? Ruins? Your friend says she believes there's more pain than beauty in the world. When Persephone was taken, Demeter damned the world for half the year. The other half remained warm and bountiful. The Greeks loved symmetry. On the plane, the man next to you read a geometry book, the lesson on finding the circumference of a circle. On circumference, you can calculate the way around if you know the way across. You try across with your friend. You try around. I don't believe in an afterlife, she says. But after Kay died, I thought I might go after her, in case I'm wrong, in case she's somewhere, waiting.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, beautiful.